From a shotgun house in tiny Lafe, Arkansas, to the glittering marquees of Branson, Missouri, Barbara Elaine Fairchild has spent 7 decades turning raw heartache into chart-topping hymns of hope. Best known for the 1973 crossover smash The Teddy Bear Song, this country gospel powerhouse clawed her way from local VFW talent nights to national television, racking up 22 Billboard hits, a Grammy nomination, and more than 2 million records sold. Yet the real story unfolds off stage. A childhood steeped in Bible Belt poverty, a Nashville grind fueled by peanut butter dinners, 3 marriages tested by life on the road, and a 1971 spiritual awakening that rewired her career forever. Today, at 74, Branson's beloved veteran sweetheart still belts every note in its original key, leading packed showrooms and livestream worship services with the same unfiltered sincerity that once stunned Billy Sherrill inside Tootsie's Orchid lounge. Hit play to discover how Barbara Fairchild turned teddy bear innocence, Arkansas grit, and unwavering faith into an American music legacy that refuses to fade. Barbara Elaine Fairchild was born at sunrise on November 12, 1950, in the tiny community of Lafe. Population barely 600, if you counted every barking dog. Her mother, Opal Pearl Womack Fairchild, a school cafeteria cook turned full-time homemaker, liked to say that the baby arrived with perfect timing, just as the season's last frost melted just early enough to share a birthday with Grace Kelly. But her father, Ulysses J. Fairchild, a square-shouldered long-haul truck driver, swore the timing meant his little girl was destined to keep moving. They named her Barbara after a distant aunt who taught Sunday school, tucked 2 middle names around her like extra blankets, and brought her home to a shotgun house that smelled faintly of wood stove biscuits and red Arkansas clay. The Fairchilds were working class to the bone. Opal stretched grocery money with mason jars of green beans and an almost magical way of turning scraps into quilts. Euless hauled everything from cattle feed to carnival rides, often leaving before dawn and rolling back into the driveway long after dark with highway dust in his hair. On those nights, he would lean across the kitchen table, pull out his battered harmony guitar, and play Carter family songs until the children, Barbara and her 2 older brothers, Charles and Thomas, dozed against his denim sleeves. Music was never a hobby in the Fairchild home. It was currency, comfort, and confession all at once. By age 5, Barbara had a vibrato that made the church pianist lift an eyebrow. She learned to read hymnals before she could sound out the Sunday comics, tracing her finger under the lyrics to Blessed Assurance, while her mother whispered the alto harmony in her ear. The first time the pastor asked for special music, Barbara climbed the 3 worn steps to the pulpit and sang so loudly that the congregation leaned back in their pews, unsure whether to applaud or pray harder. When she finally finished, the silence popped like a jar seal breaking, and every grandmother in the building proclaimed, "That child is anointed." Yet talent alone doesn't buy a bus ticket out of Knoebel, the neighboring hamlet where the family moved when Barbara turned 6. The town's claim to fame was a single blinking traffic light and a grain elevator that doubled as the Christmas tree when farmers draped it in colored bulbs. Barbara spent weekdays helping Opal shell peas and weekends trailing behind Euless at truck stops where jukeboxes sparked her imagination. She memorized every cut on Patsy Cline's Walking After Midnight, stuffed bottle caps in her pockets to jingle like tambourines, and convinced her brothers to build a stage out of orange crates behind the barn. Most audiences consisted of barn cats and one very patient hound dog, but Barbara soaked up their indifferent company like applause. Everything changed the summer of 1963. A union dispute thinned Ulysses' trucking routes, just as the family doctor warned that Opal's arthritis would worsen without better medical care. Opportunity in the form of factory jobs and larger hospitals pointed north to St. Louis, Missouri. Euless borrowed a flatbed truck from a cousin, tied a mattress atop the cab, and loaded their entire existence, quilts, guitars, canning jars, and one defiant milk cow, onto the back. The neighbors waved until the tailgate disappeared in dust. 12-year-old Barbara, hair in brush rollers, and heart throbbing with fear, clasped two items in her lap: a worn Gideon Bible and a Sears Silvertone microphone that wasn't even plugged into anything. In the sticky hum of the cab, she made a vow. Wherever this highway led, she would keep singing until someone, somewhere, turned the volume up. St. Louis felt like another planet. Asphalt steamed, trolley bells rang past factory whistles, and neon flickered across brick alleys that smelled of hops from the Anheuser-Busch plant. Barbara enrolled at Rittenhour High School, where accents collided like marbles in a tin cup. She auditioned for the school choir with Loretta Lynn's "I Walked Away from the Wreck," and the choir director, the first person she met who had professional sheet music in his briefcase, nearly choked on his clipboard. He cast her as the mezzo lead in every single production, while secretly lobbying the city's TV networks to give this Arkansas whirlwind some airtime. That break arrived on a Saturday morning talent show called Showboat Jubilee. Barbara wore a borrowed polka dot dress and sang Kitty Wells's "It Wasn't God Who Made Honky-Tonk Angels." The host, startled by the juxtaposition of church sweet face and honky-tonk lyrics, forgot to cue the commercial. Phone lines lit up with callers demanding a repeat performance. Norman Records, a regional label known mostly for polka compilations, offered Barbara her first contract within 72 hours. She was 15, still failing geometry, and suddenly discussing recording schedules with men twice her age. They stuck her in a basement studio, hung mattresses for sound absorption, and cut brand new Bed of Roses. The single crept across Missouri and Illinois AM stations, peaking just high enough to convince local DJs she wasn't a one-off novelty. Barbara's high school life blurred into a montage of pep rallies, typing class, and weekend gigs in VFW lodges that smelled of stale cigarette smoke and stale marriages. She learned stagecraft the hard way, how to keep singing when a drunken barfly slurred requests, how to modulate key when the house band played in B-flat instead of A, and how to pose for photos without shivering in a sleeveless dress near the back exit. Her teachers tolerated the absences. Her friends bragged they'd seen the next Brenda Lee. Her mother prayed nightly that big dreams wouldn't break her daughter's small-town heart. The diploma came in May 1968, and Barbara wasted no time mailing demos to Nashville, each cassette wrapped in a handwritten plea. Cap Records' politely worded rejection arrived first, then MCA's form letter. She posted those on her mirror as motivation. She scraped together gas money by singing harmony vocals on local jingles and selling homemade jam outside the Firestone plant. Finally, part miracle, part stubbornness, she rolled south on Highway 41 in a lime green Dodge Dart, stopping only to refill a thermos of coffee as thick as tar. She knew exactly one person in Nashville, a family friend who offered a pull-out sofa and directions to Music Row. Nothing cuts deeper than polite indifference. And Nashville in 1968 was an expert surgeon. Label secretaries promised callbacks that never came. Publishers praised her real pretty voice, but claimed they were overbooked. She scrounged gigs in laundromats and bowling alleys simply to be near a microphone. On one particularly lean Tuesday, she traded her last $5 for a bowl of chili at Linebaugh's and flirted with despair. In her diary that night, she wrote, "Lord, if you can use me, I'll keep showing up. But maybe send me a sign bigger than this chili spoon." The sign turned out to be Billy Sherrill, the legendary producer with sideburns as thick as his Tennessee drawl. He'd discovered Tammy Wynette, coaxed Harper Valley PTA out of Jeannie C. Riley, and, by sheer coincidence, ducked into Tootsie's Orchid Lounge one muggy evening in 1969 when Barbara took the tiny corner stage. She had just finished wailing "Where No One Stands Alone," eyes closed, unaware that the bar chatter had gone silent. Sherrill bought her a cola, scribbled his number on a napkin, and told her to swing by Columbia Records the next morning. Despite sleeping 3 hours on a borrowed couch, Barbara walked into that meeting as if she owned the building, and for the next decade, her voice practically did "Love is a Gentle Thing" crack the Billboard Country Top 100 at number 69 in late 1969. It wasn't a runaway smash, but it made columnists curious. A Girl Who'll Satisfy Her Man nudged higher to number 26 in 1970, and those same writers started whispering the word breakthrough. Barbara, ever the realist, kept her waiter job at Elliston Place Soda Shop in case the momentum fizzled. She also kept a pocket New Testament and underlined every verse that mentioned perseverance. Meanwhile, her personal life sprinted ahead. She married steel guitar prodigy Randy Reinhardt in a courthouse ceremony attended by 2 fellow session players and a clerk who couldn't stop gawking at the bride's sky blue mini dress. Nobody had the money for a honeymoon, so they drove straight from City Hall to the next honky-tonk gig. Swapping I Do for Tonight will open with Your Cheatin' Heart. Within 4 years, they would welcome 3 children, each birth folding another layer of complexity into an already frantic career. Then came the lightning strike. Songwriters Don Earl and Nick Nixon turned in a demo called The Teddy Bear Song, a deceptively gentle waltz about longing to trade adult heartbreak for childhood innocence. Sherrill sensed gold. Barbara sensed autobiography. She recorded it in a single take one January afternoon in 1973, her voice quivering like a prayer. When radio stations first spun the single, listeners jammed phone lines requesting repeats. By March, the track shot to number 1, won on Billboard's Hot Country Songs, and even clawed its way to number 1. 32 on the all-genre Hot 100, a remarkable feat when AM playlists were dominated by Elton John, Jim Croce, and the looming disco wave. The record sold 1 million copies. The RIAA shipped her a gold disc, and suddenly Barbara was fielding invitations from Johnny Carson Hee Haw and the Grand Ole Opry on the same day. Success, though, is loud enough to drown still small voices. Backstage at Ralph Emery's Nashville Now, Barbara realized the wardrobe department had laid out a micro skirt that made the devout mother in her squirm. She remembered her 1971 conversion moment, kneeling at a Pentecostal altar, mascara tears staining her cheeks, promising God she'd serve Him first, audience second. The tension clashed nightly, seductive image versus sacred calling. She prayed, compromised, prayed again. She refused photo shoots that felt exploitative, added gospel numbers to her sets, and risked label blowback. Yet each new single still climbed. Kid Stuff peaked at number 2, Baby Doll at number 6, Standing in Your Line at number 17. Fans showed up not just for catchy hooks, but for authenticity, the hint of Sunday morning and Friday night's chorus. Amid the frenzy, married life frayed. Randy Reinhardt adored the spotlight almost as much as he resented its demands, and Barbara's tour schedule ballooned from 80 shows a year to nearly 200. In 1980, desperate to salvage the relationship, they relocated to San Antonio. For a minute, domestic bliss hovered. They bought a ranch-style house near the River Walk, ate barbecue beneath mesquite trees, and helped the children raise show calves for 4-H. But the calm crumbled under financial strain and conflicting ambitions. Barbara filed for divorce in 1982, a public heartbreak softened only by private faith. That same year, she married Milton Carroll, an evangelistic singer with a Pentecostal preacher's fire and a knack for stadium altar calls. Together they led revivals across Texas, Barbara closing each night with an acoustic rendition of Sweet Hour of Prayer. The partnership burned bright and brief, more duet than marriage, dissolving quietly by the decade's end. Critics predicted the back-to-back breakups might derail her. Instead, they redirected her out of the mainstream into the arms of gospel. 1989's The Light marked her formal transition, produced in Nashville but mixed in prayer. Reviewers noted that her voice, once syrupy sweet, now carried weathered conviction. She didn't just believe the lyrics, she had lived them in bar bathrooms and motel lobbies. She followed with You Are My Sunshine, 1990. Partly secular, partly spiritual, then formed the trio Heirloom with Candy Hemphill Christmas and Tanya Goodman Sykes. Their single, Prayin' Up a Storm, lit up Christian radio in 1990, and Barbara tasted a different kind of applause, less glitter, more gratitude. In 1992, she accepted an extended engagement at Mel Tillis's Theater in Branson, Missouri, a town newly christened as the live music capital of the world. She expected a 6-month contract. 3 decades later, she still calls Branson home. When Jim Stafford offered his stage in 1993, Barbara upgraded from guest slot to headliner, blending country nostalgia, gospel powerhouses, and corny dad jokes that made seniors in tour bus rows guffaw loud enough to rattle hearing aids. She and her new husband, singer-songwriter Roy Morris, launched a weekly Sunday worship service at Music City Center in 1994. They named it God and Country, 2 words that defined their mission, and for 25 years straight, through ice storms, power outages, and the occasional plumbing disaster, they never canceled a single Sunday. Roy and Barbara's union was built on alignment, shared humor, shared key signatures, shared devotion. He proposed during a sound check, kneeling beside the monitor wedge while she fidgeted with a mic stand. The ring box was taped to his Stratocaster because he figured she'd be looking there anyway. She said yes between giggles. The band kicked into I'll Fly Away, and the tech crew cried along. Their duets became Branson staples. He does all things well. Wings of a dove. Let me be there. Fans described the chemistry as front pew marriage goals. Branson also sharpened her humanitarian bent. Barbara and Roy organized an annual veteran service during Veterans Homecoming Week, featuring color guards, testimonies, and that indescribable moment when World War II soldiers salute a tiny Arkansas singer as if she, not they, liberated Europe. One Korean war vet nicknamed her the Veteran Sweetheart, and the moniker stuck, eventually emblazoned on commemorative posters sold to fund local PTSD programs. Her gospel credentials deepened with the 2003 album Love Never Fails, produced by bluegrass great Ricky Skaggs and featuring harmony giants Connie Smith and Sharon White. The record earned rave reviews in CCM magazine, received a Dove Award nomination, and introduced Barbara to a new demographic, millennial worship leaders scavenging for authentic anthems. Touring remained relentless. Revival tents in Mississippi, mega churches in Dallas, cruise ship stages headed for Cozumel. Yet each time she started Amazing Grace, the audience stilled like school children listening for the recess bell. Barbara reached the legacy phase without noticing. Induction into the Arkansas Entertainers Hall of Fame came in 2012, complete with a bronze plaque, and whether or not that day arrives, Barbara Fairchild's legacy is already etched across decades of dashboards, kitchen radios, hymnals, iPhone playlists, and patched-up hearts. She has sung lullabies to generation after generation of broken dreamers, wrapped grown-up fears in childlike wonder, and proven, night after neon night, that a humble Arkansas girl can tour every corner of the map without losing the home address tattooed on her spirit. So the next time the world feels a size too small, drift back to that simple waltz about a teddy bear, or cue up the gravel-sweet plea of "Let me love you once before you go." Listen for the hint of Sunday morning hovering inside each note. That's Barbara Elaine Fairchild, daughter of Opal and Ulysses, sister to Charles and Thomas, mother of three, grandmother of many, wife, veteran, sweetheart, gospel troubadour, queen of red clay resilience. At 74, she stands center stage, spine straight, eyes shining, guitar humming, and asks if you'd mind singing along, because for all the miles she's logged and all the curtain calls gathered like magnolia blossoms at her feet, Barbara still believes music is a conversation, not a performance. She starts it, you finish it, and somewhere between the first downbeat and the last applause, heaven leans in closer, listening for the moment when every broken heart remembers. It was once carried to bed by a song.